Oh, it's not coming through this. It's coming through this. There we go. Yes. All set? Yes. All right. Thank you very much. My name is Russ Adams. I'm the Director of Capital Projects for the city's Department of Public Facilities. Our department is headed up by Jim Bedard. He's our Chief of Public Facilities. And I just want to turn it over to the mayor to give some opening remarks. Thank you.
I just want to thank you for all being part of this committee, or who's part of the committee? Your mayor. We have 40 people in the committee. So because we have 2 schools. So this is very exciting. So everybody here with Councilor O'Connell, who's on the committee, Owen McCall from the school committee, Christian King, I just saw Christian's experience right here. And who am I missing? Oh, Sue Mailman. And anybody else? Okay, great. So I just wanted to thank you for all for coming. This is an exciting project, and I think this neighborhood's been waiting for this. And yeah, and we've had some great ideas. Won't get into the educational part of this yet. This is more about giving you the process. What I was just going to proceed. So right now, there's 2 schools on the table: the high school by itself, and also the high school and the middle school at the same time. So that decision will probably be made at the end of the year.
Yep.
Okay. And so we have, I know Wayne Pagano is the architect again. And graduated. He built great schools. And you see Dory, he did that. He did the South, and probably Nelson Place.
Nelson Place.
Yep. And so this is my 5th school as mayor, and one of the things I want to do is go the high schools over. And this is so much. The campus is so spread out, so much land here, it makes it really, really nice. And that's the goal here. You really think about it, Dory High School as it sits now, probably could take half the space that the school is so spread out. And so there's gonna be a lot of land here, what to work with. I know there's some challenges with the land going the way land does, up and down. But we can make it all work. It makes, like you were saying, we make self-high work, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm looking forward to this so much. And so we're gonna go through the process, time schedule, when we're gonna have the groundbreaking, but also hopefully the ribbon cutting.
Yeah.
So exactly when that's gonna occur. But so this is exciting time, looking for all ideas. This is not a voting night, but there are nights we're gonna have to vote on certain things. That's where you really have to come, take a vote, and how we're gonna proceed. Okay, and Russ, turn back to you. And Brian Allen's the superintendent somewhere here too, in the back. So Brian, I thought I saw Will Foley somewhere in the back. Will was the principal here for a number of years. It's executive director now, and I think I get everybody.
I have Joey Wixon too, the current principal.
Oh, where is he? Oh, you're down there. Yeah. Okay, you're still gonna be here when we open this up? Okay, go ahead, Russ.
All right, thank you very much. As the mayor said, we have some new people added to the school building committee because we folded in the middle school. So this is actually our 3rd school building committee meeting. Just to shortly recap, the first meeting was led by me. I gave a general overview of the process. And at that time, we didn't have an OPM or we didn't have a designer on board. But what the committee did do at that time is vote to put out a bid to hire the OPM. So right after we did that, we worked with the Mass School Building Authority to go through their process to hire a designer, hence why LPA is here today. So this is our 3rd meeting. It's basically to introduce the team, and if I can, I want to introduce Doran Whittier, our OPM, to introduce themselves, their team, and let them talk about their part of this process. he's gonna then turn it over to Lamero Pagano, who's gonna really dive a little deeper into the process. So, please enjoy, take it all in.
Want to tell them what OPM is?
The OPM is door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do they do?
Oh, the,
I know what they do.
so the OPM basically assists the city. They're really the city's liaison between the city of Worcester and the Mass School Building Authority. They do a heavy lift of reporting and reporting to the Mass School Building Authority where we are in the process. They also control, to the best of their ability, the schedule, the budget, and they're experts in what they do. We couldn't do this process without an OPM, especially Dora and Whittier. So I think you'll see real fast that they're a great asset to our project delivery team, as is LPA. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Russ, and thank you for having us tonight. I just want to take a quick moment and just say thank you. Russ, on behalf of your team, the capital projects, the school administration, and the city as a whole, thank you for entrusting us as your owner's project manager. We are very clear that our mandate is not only to just help deliver the project schedule, the budget, and the quality for the new Burncoat school, but it's to tease out and understand what the goals and the vision truly will become, and then to defend those goals at every step of the way. While Dorn Whittier's been around since 1992, our project management group is about 15 years old. There's roughly 20 members of a diverse background, from construction managers, document specialists, architects, and while we're not serving as an architect, some of those backgrounds are inherently valuable to our role as an owner's project manager. Myself as project director, Steve Brown, I have a small team, a small part of the team that is working on the Burncoat on our behalf is Terry Hartford, senior project manager, Andrea O'Toole, project manager, and assistant project manager Nick Moore. So as I mentioned, we've been around for doing this for probably about 15 years in some of the neighboring communities. One thing that we have has been a pure focus of ours has been Massachusetts School Building Authority projects that have been the funding partner in Massachusetts through the core program. So that's something we're inherently familiar with. While some folks like to say they've seen this movie before, every project is truly unique and different. And I think that's what helps set Dorn Whittier apart, is to help bring what's different and what's valuable as a community, in a neighborhood, in a school district, to the new vision of Burncoat. That's a little bit about Dorn Whittier, what we do. If you have questions for us, for any of the team members, we'll be happy to answer those, whether during the presentation or after. But one of the things, as Russ mentioned, we've been working on for the past couple of months since we've come on board is working with the MSBA to help through the designer selection process, and hence LPA, who again is no stranger to the city of Worcester and schools of this magnitude and in this area. I'd like to turn it over to your team. Peter, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Steve. Appreciate it. Good evening, everyone. My name is Peter Caruso with LPA Architects. I'm the principal in charge for the Burncoat School Building Project, responsible for high-level oversight and contractual obligations. We're very excited to be here to continue our long-standing partnership with the city and the school district. Joining me tonight is Sean Brennan, our project architect, Christopher Lee, our project manager, and Christina Basilmans, who will be leading our programming and sustainable design efforts. Unfortunately, Michael Dukowski couldn't make it tonight, but he'll be leading our building technology and envelope design efforts. All 5 of us are principals with LPA. We assigned senior staff to this project to give it the level of attention it needs and deserves. Show of hands, how many of you have been through an MSBA project before? Some of you, excellent. Good to know. So tonight we're going to give a high-level overview of the MSBA process, including a preliminary project schedule. Now, you may hear several acronyms tonight. Don't get nervous. Between the OPM and us, we're going to try to make this process go as smoothly as possible. We're going to help Russ, Jim, the superintendent, the principals sleep very well every night. So I know everyone's time is very valuable, so I'm going to hand it over to the rest of the team to make sure they're going to go through the rest of the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. Apologize for my voice. So I'm really excited about this one. Many of you may know me, some of you may not. I'm a Worcester kid, grew up on the south side of the city, but my children live right on Marianne Drive. So This project's really important to me. My daughter will actually be coming through the front doors as a freshman the first fall this school opens. So while it's a long process, that puts a lot of perspective. She's only in the second grade right now. So, you know, I'm laying the groundwork here for you to understand just how long of a process we have ahead of us.
Goes by fast.
It does go by fast, but it's really important that we do it because we get it done right. And in our state, what you're seeing here is very prescriptive in how we procure, design, and ultimately construct projects. They break it down into modules. Like I said, it's very prescriptive. And where we are today is where you see that red star. So we formed the team, and since the team has been formed, and once we came on board, where we're at now in the phase that we're about to complete is the feasibility study, which requires a vote at the end and approval by the state, and then going into schematic design. What does that all mean? As Peter said, there's going to be a lot of acronyms we talk about. So the feasibility study comes in two parts. The first part is called the preliminary design program, the PDP. The second part is called the PSR, the preferred schematic report. Yet again, you're like, what does that mean? We're going to get there. You're going to hear all about all the details and how we get there. So to put this overall, all the modules into perspective, to give you a sense of those over 6 years we're talking about going forward, here we are today, mid-2026. As you can see from the Gantt chart on the bottom, feasibility study broken into the two parts. At the end of the feasibility study, as I said, that preferred schematic report is when we pick our final option. So what we're doing during this whole feasibility study period is vetting all the options. So as mentioned, towards the end of this year, beginning of next year, we will have our final option. Then we take that option, we advance the design to schematic design level. That means we actually have floor plans, wall sections, materials picked out, site plan, everything else. And then we have to fund the project. There's two parts to funding the project. The local municipality has to make a vote, and after they make a vote, then the state has to also approve it. Actually, I think it's the opposite order, if I'm correct. Usually the state, but you can preempt the state's vote, expecting them to do it. It's not necessarily required. Then we have an approved plan, the funding's in place. We're then off to the races to finalize all the documentation for competitive bidding. We haven't fully decided on this project. It is anticipated potentially being a CM at risk. There's also the design bid build process. We don't know which way it's going to go. We'll run the cost estimates to see which way it could come, and see how it gets there. But so it could either be a design bid build or a CM at risk. If it is a CM at risk, we'll bring in a construction manager on earlier. Then construction will go on for at least about 2.5 years, and we're looking at a fall of 2032 opening. All right. Yes, Sue.
If it's not a CM at risk and it's design build, is door, well, how does that work? Who's the builder?
It would go out for public bid. It would be the low bidder.
And either way, they report to door.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yep.
Thank you.
And then, given this is if it ends up here, but typically, even if it is a different site, there's usually a building opening and then there's a year of site finishes. Sometimes if we have a turf athletic field, a track, parking, other pieces, we try to get enough online and then there'll be another year of finishing it out. Sometimes planting seasons don't align. So that's the big picture. What we're here to talk about today is what we have in front of us for the next and what we've been funded to do. And that is the feasibility study and schematic design. As I mentioned, there's several submissions, and in those submissions, they go to the state. They're highlighted with the purple asterisks. So we're in the PDP right now. We're going to talk more about what comes for tasks in the PDP. At the end of that, this SBC needs to convene to render a vote that they've reviewed the package that is going to the state. As you see, there's no state review period after the PDP. They just take it, they review it, they make sure it has all the pieces it needs. Then at the end of the PSR, when you're picking your final and best option that you're looking to do, we have to get that package together. This SBC needs to convene again. You have to render a vote. At that point, there is an actual review by MSBA and a vote for approval that they agree with your preferred option that you've selected as a municipality. After that, we go right into schematic design. As I already mentioned, more advanced design. We finish that out. You have to render a vote again and submit it to the MSBA for their review. So for those that are on the committee, the big point and big takeaway and the things that we need to figure out as far as our next meetings go is at each one of these points, we do a cost estimate, and at every level we go along, the cost estimate gets more and more refined. In this early phase, they're going to be really just big square foot numbers because we're trying to get our arms around how big this building is, a lot of other things. So what we plan to do is we have normally that cost estimate, depending on the level, could take anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks to get that cost estimate together. But we have all our documents ready before then. So what you're seeing here in green is what we're calling our update meetings. We would like to have an updating meeting with the SBC right before it goes to the cost estimate. What we feel very strongly about doing that is it allows you to judge the merits of the option without money in mind. I'm not saying that money's not important. Money might completely change your decision after you see it. But if you can look at the options that we've come up with together and vet them, whether they're right or wrong, based purely on their merits and qualifications, it really gives you a lot less to think about when you get that cost estimate in, and maybe it reaffirms, or maybe it makes you somewhat question or go a different direction. But it's a whole lot to take in all at one meeting. We want to get a lot of the, hey, this is the lay of the land out of the way, and just be able to get you the cost estimate in advance of that final vote. So I kept talking about the PDP, didn't really tell you what we're going to do. Well, this is what the really big part of the PDP is. First and foremost, program development. As I said, the state has a very prescriptive kind of way of going about procuring public projects like this. Everything comes from the educational plan. Christina's going to talk a little bit more about that and how we're going to advance the education plan, who we're going to talk to, how you as a community can get invested in that. Also, we're going to look at alternative sites, which you'll hear more about later. And then we're going to reevaluate your existing conditions to see what's going on here, what's right, what's wrong, what needs to be improved, what's a violation. And we've already been through the school. We had almost all of our consulting engineers in here through April vacation because it was a great time to get in here when students weren't there. After we take together all that information, we come up with options that start to vet out and support the educational program. What's unique about this project from any of the other schools, and I don't know if Worcester's ever really done a dual enrollment study ever, is the state, the way the middle school is being considered in this project is as a separate enrollment. So this is technically the Burncoat High School project, calling it the Burncoat School project because it is a school. The two enrollments represent the upper enrollment of 1,400 students represents only if we did a building to support 9 to 12. What does that mean for the middle school? Our study will talk about that. Does it stay where it is? Does it move to the high school? Does it go somewhere? We'll review all that. We'll get into that. The second option is where the middle school really comes into the fold and comes into play. And the projected enrollment that we'll be designing to is that 21-25. So what happens is when we did Doherty and South and Nelson Place, we were only looking at one enrollment. We were looking at ad renos, new constructions, no builds. Now we have to look at each one of those for both enrollments. So you're going to see what all the different options are for two different enrollment considerations. Whether you know this already, if you're familiar with the school, the way high schools currently in Worcester have been being put together is the 9th grade academy has been used as a transition year. That's why we're calling it out separately. It's not its own school. But yet again, even if these buildings are housed under the same building entrance, separate entrances, whatever it ends up being, we still understand that critical year from middle school to high school. And that's what's being acknowledged in this diagram. So with that, I'm going to let Christina come up and talk more about how we're going to really get that educational plan right for you guys.
So you've heard us talk a lot about the programming process. And so in case you don't know what the programming process, I wanted to just take a step back and explain what the programming process is. So the visioning is the big picture goals and aspirations for the project. That's kind of step one. And then the programming process is actually kind of getting a little bit more into the details, like finding out what the ingredients are for the recipe of this new Burncoat project. So it's kind of both of those things that are happening at once, the big picture overarching goals, along with the detailed programming that we're going to be taking on during the PDP phase. And so this project is so important and so complex, and you've been waiting for it for a long time. So it's going to be really important that we get feedback from lots of different entities in order to feed into that program and that vision. So we want to hear from the students, we want to hear from the teachers, the community members, and the city and the district to make sure that we take all of that information, And to make a kind of music analogy, we want to compose it into a composition that can be easily understood, read, and played from by all parties. So that's what we're going to try to do. We're also partnering with David Stephen from New Vista Design. Once again, he was our partner on visioning for Doherty. And what he does is he brings a ton of background in teaching and learning methodologies, as well as a lot of experience in programming and designing combined middle high schools. So he's going to be a great asset. And I'm going to talk a little bit about more what his visioning aspect is going to be a little bit later. We both have a variety of tools to be able to ensure that all voices are heard through the programming process. So we have Mentimeter, we have Zoom, we have simultaneous translated captions. We have ways of getting communication out in different languages and taking communication in different languages. So that's going to be really important to ensure that the final product of the visioning and programming process truly reflects the Worcester community. So David's going to be doing some visioning workshops, and we're going to let you know what those dates are at the end of the presentation. So he's going to be asking for big picture, overarching, aspirational ideas for the project. And at the same time, our team at LPA will be kind of diving into the more detailed items. So we really need to find out what the spaces are that are going to be required to support the educational program. So some of the ways that we do that is we do use our technology to send out online surveys and questionnaires to students, staff, and the community. We have a series of focus groups, which is going to be something that we're launching into shortly, where we kind of come into the school and we march down every single department within the school and we try to understand what the goals would be for a new Burncoat school. So we want to talk to the academics folks, we want to talk to the special education folks, we want to talk to the kitchen folks as well as the custodial folks to really understand what exactly do you need to support the educational program and how big is it and where should it be located? How should it be organized? So at the same time, what the school and district is working on is called the educational program. This is a really super important document that is a big deliverable for the PDP phase. And this is basically the roadmap for the educational delivery of the program for Burncoat. So it goes into class size and scheduling. It talks about CTE programs, and it talks about the arts program. So it's going to be a big document that really sets the stage for the program going forward. And that's something that the school and district will be working on with assistance from LPA and New Vista. And what we do with all that information is we kind of come up with these two documents that you're going to see now, and Chris is going to talk about the second one. This is the program development bubble diagrams or adjacency diagrams. You can call them either one. So this beautiful kind of rainbow diagram shows us every single space within the school, how it's located, what wants to be nearby it, how it wants to be adjacent to other spaces, what needs exterior public access, what needs to be connected all throughout the school. So this kind of document, which is actually from South High, in case it looks kind of familiar, really helps us to get an understanding of how the spaces want to be organized and helps the design team really do their test fits to make sure that as they're going along in their test fits, that they're all meeting the educational program. And the next thing that we do, we take those bubble diagrams and we insert it into the space summary template. Chris is going to talk a little bit more about that.
So this document comes from the school building authority, and it's a comprehensive spreadsheet, and it's going to be shared. And it analyzes and records a couple of key factors, right? It looks at the first column there, your existing school, what attributes, what spaces you have now. At the other end, it has the MSBA guidelines, the projected baseline spaces based on enrollment. It just calculates out, and that's going to be the same for every district. In the middle is the program that is going to be defined by the programming process. And so it just helps lay out all the information what you have now, what MSBA offers to everybody, and then what we're looking for Burncoat specifically. This looks in a different way, those numbers. So if you're a numbers guy, spreadsheet works. If you're a visual guy like me, this is ratios, right? So the white spaces represent what your schools have now, and the red is all the deficiencies. So you can see like academic, this is actually Doherty. Doherty was almost half deficient in its spaces according to current standards. So this just gives a quick little visual as to, a little gauge as to the different categories by MSBA where things fall. So there's, academic, there's special education, health and fitness, media center, etc. And so we're producing these similar diagrams for Burncoat as well. So that was the building. We also have a series of diagrams that look at the site. So what are the field amenities? What are the field program components? So you can see the track and a field. You can see, different diamonds, tennis, and the other side is the practical stuff. How much parking do we need for, students that are driving, teachers, visitors, etc. How many buses are coming on site? And there's also a crude little ratio diagram of the building footprint. So you can see, again, this is Doherty, and the white is, the area of the current school, and the red was all the spaces that it was looking to have. We've been analyzing, we're familiar, we're in the area, but we will continue to analyze the site and with our engineers to provide full reports on the property, the different opportunities, the different challenges. For instance, we know there's many different grade changes. We also noted early that there's a drain line underneath the field in the back there. So those are all, things and observations we're making, and we'll bring those forward into the different designs and options. We'll continue looking at the outside of the building, the envelope or the shell, if you will, the condition of the walls, the roofs, making our observations and our reports. It's all part of the process. We also know that there are many, code challenges, accessibility challenges, and those will all be resolved in our designs moving forward. This is one of the better bathrooms, actually, in the school. So, just want to note that. But not all ADA violations, as Sean pointed out, and we'll be recording those as the different fixes and the order of magnitude required to bring it up to current standards. And then lastly, but not least, the site civil and the site landscape components will also be considered as part of our team. I'm going to give it back over to Sean.
John, you mentioned that Rob Bellata is online.
Yes, yeah, Rob is online.
Rob Bellata.
Yep, yes, Councilman Robert Belota is also joining us online for this meeting. So I mentioned earlier on, and I said his name wrong, didn't I? Somebody just correct me on his name, maybe sorry. We're familiar with the city, so we've looked for parcels all through the south quadrant, all through the Doherty quadrant, and now we're looking for them through the Burncoat quadrant. This is our initial pass. We're going to do the same exact process we did for South and Doherty. As you saw in the earlier diagrams Chris was showing, the one for Doherty, it showed that the absolute minimum for Doherty was 13 acres, right? We're going to do that same thing here. To kind of give you a perspective, when I talked about the two enrollments, if we're at the smaller enrollment, that's a South. So South was about 1,400 students. This would be about 25 more than that, right? At the 21-25, that's about 25% bigger than Doherty, okay? So when you want to put a scale to how big the building could be on one side and how big it could be on the other, that's kind of a great kind of sense of scale for you to understand what we're looking at. What does that mean for site? Doherty's existing site is 20 acres, all right? That houses a 425,000 square foot building, and they have their one utility field and parking, right? Here, we have multiple fields. We're anticipating, if it's on the higher side, even bigger building. So what this map shows is all sites that are available in the area that are 15 acres and above. Obviously, we could go tighter than that, but being and looking at creating parity across the district for what the high schools have in the other three quadrants, going any smaller than 15 acres, there wouldn't be that parity. Knowing that, Doherty's already at 20, there would be some severe deficiencies if we went any smaller than that. So this is our initial pass. We'll have more to report on the sites Nothing's jumping out to us at the moment. A lot of stuff has a lot of existing development, chapter 97, parkland, water, future development, in the process and underway. So more to report on that as we go. And as I mentioned, at the end of this, after we work through all the existing conditions, all the deficiencies, get the ed program, figure out how many classrooms we have, we come up with options. But these options are very broad brush at this phase, right? We're looking at scale and order of magnitude. Can a building that's the size of South fit on this site? Can a building that's a quarter more than Doherty fit on this site? These were the diagrams that were at the end of what we're in now, the PDP for Doherty. So we had a no build option, addition renovation, new construction, and there we did have alternative sites. We also can and will have more than one new construction option even on the existing site. We will for this project, because remember, we have two different enrollments. So what you see here as a bare minimum is what we have to do, but we have to do it twice, because we have to do it for the 1400 and we have to do it for the 2125. And that really wraps up our presentation on the PDP. I didn't know if anyone from our team had any other topics that they didn't anticipate putting on the agenda that they'd like to bring up at this time.
I thought it was great.
All right.
I hope you guys did.
When you mentioned the 1425, what does that represent
That's the number of students that the state has allowed you to design to on the lower
for
end.
Burncoat? I
For
thought it was
Burncoat.
1600 yet. Under some of the slides. Yeah.
So it might have been the example for Doherty that you were seeing.
No, it's the very first slide. Okay. Because you had 2100 and you had 16. Is 1400, is that based on formula?
Yes.
It's gonna be big enough? Like, it's not gonna be.
Oh, did I say 14?
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
That-
It is
that was-
16.
you think that was-
I think I'm wrong.
I think the very first slide.
Have it right. Yeah.
Oh, I have it right. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, 14, that's right there.
Yeah, 1400.
All right.
125.
How big is Doherty?
How many students? Doherty's 17, right?
1670.
1670? 1670.
There's no, this school's gonna be packed before.
It is.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And so, that's where the guidelines being the bare minimum and figuring out your educational plan and looking at the schedule and figuring out how many teaching stations you need to have to appropriately schedule it. But the thing that I think is a great opportunity, and I'm going a little off agenda here a little bit, is no, and it's okay, because I think it's a great point, is having both schools together, we can get that kind of duality and overlap of spaces that, you know, we all know there are some spaces that are needed for specific functions that kind of sit vacant sometimes because there's not, it might be a special or whatever. But when we have the two enrollments, it will get 100% use all the time, particularly with your Fine Arts Academy and other special things here.
Can I add just
Yeah.
2 cents? There was a meeting with the MSBA in one of the modules, one of the earlier modules, module 1, the eligibility barrier. Even before that, the district met with the Mass School Building Authority to develop these enrollments, talk about projections, talk about how many kids are coming into the city versus how many kids are leaving, and really hone in on what these enrollments should be. So it's not just someone picking a number out of the sky. There's meat behind these numbers. Thank you.
I have 2 questions. So therefore, you're looking at the rate of birth of children within our area to project these numbers?
That's what's been taken into consideration to finalize these.
My
numbers.
second question, on that map that you showed of the like the spreadsheet of all of the classrooms, I didn't see a library.
Oh, it's called Media Center?
Media.
Oh,
Yep, yeah, so just a nuance as far as, yep, there will definitely be a Media Center.
Sure, got the line.
Yep.
That's not called a PowerPoint, it's
So-
like.
Yeah, I'm happy to, Russ is gonna field questions, so if you wanna raise your,
Are we done with the presentation?
yeah, we're open to public comment at this point.
Ask about the option of space in the first quadrant. That's means nothing to me to see that. I don't know what it means.
Yep.
How do you interpret that? Is that big space down at the bottom, is that what presently exists?
So as Sean stated earlier, we're working with the Mass School Building Authority as a partner. They're not only a funding partner, but they it's a very prescribed process on how we make decisions along the way. It's not just the city of Worcester, it's not just this team, it's actually the MSBA for short, that is at the table kind of every step of the way. So one of the things that they require you to do is to not only just settle on, all right, we're gonna build a school behind the existing school, but they make you look at that, at the Burncoat quadrant, if you will, to see what the potential is. They want you to vet, they want you to turn every stone over and research what could be the best option for Burncoat. So even though the majority of the people in this room might think that, hey, out back is a big vacant piece of land for the new building, we have to go through this exercise to satisfy what the MSBA is telling us they have to do. They want to see it. They want this team to justify every decision. So it's in that vein that we're looking at these sites.
What are the sites?
Well, it's strategically small, so you can't see and identify what we're talking about. No, I lied.
So, yeah, so.
Sean, can you?
Yeah, what we did for this one is, we coordinated with the city's GIS coordinator that has all the parcels, and I asked them to help us identify all the parcels that were 15 acres or bigger. And then we took that map, overlaid, the red outline is the Burncoat quadrant. So we were just looking at parcels that were larger than 15 acres, whether they have a school or not. The big green one is Green Hill Park, right? So some of these like are just complete non-starters. If you look up here, you know, you'll see the color coded denotes what they are. I mean, we even have the cemetery, you know, down off of Grove Street there. You know, we're not going to be, getting rid of a cemetery. But the whole point is the part of this process is, and Russ talked about, is leaving no stone unturned. If we didn't include our, you know, blanketly across all parcels, 15 acres and up, and left one off, we'd be open to criticism for that. So we're showing everything, whether it's restricted, whether it's there's a water in some of these, you know, there's conservation land, but it's simply the not arbitrary number. The well-educated number of a 15-acre site would be the minimum for this school.
And if I could expand on that, this slide isn't coming to any conclusion, if you will. It's only showing you that this is part of the process that we have to go through. So don't get hung up on, you know, what site is this, what site is that. That's coming. That's all going to be vetted as we move forward. This is more just, again, showing you what we have to do, what exercise we have to do to get to that, to the end.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
I just have a quick question. I don't want to belabor the whole enrollment
Oh, you
numbers and
can.
things like, no, I'm curious. So I know you're looking at the trends and this is stuff you guys do all the time as part of your work. But are we looking at students that may be going outside of the district right now that we anticipate will be most likely coming back because of the newer building? Are we looking at private schools that may end up closing at some point, possibly, and those students coming back into the district?
Ryan beat me to the punch. I was gonna mention.
Yes, so I actually led the study with MSBA. I did it with South and Doherty as well. So it's a formula that MSBA does. We were allowed pushback. They did take our feedback, like what we've seen with South and Doherty being kind of overcrowded already.
Yes.
Beyond, so. We demonstrated kids that are from the Burncoat quadrant that are out on school choice. Not that it's exactly those kids, but it's those numbers of kids that should be accounted. So that's why they allowed us to go from Burncoat's current enrollment of about 1,100 students up to the 1,400 students. They did not change the middle school enrollment though, so. And so we locked into, signed an agreement with MSB blocking into those numbers.
What is the largest enrollment at the schools?
What was it? Will you remember? What's the peak enrollment of this school in the history?
13.
Oh, the speak.
1,400.
Thank you. That answered your question, I hope. Thank you. Do we have any questions via the web or anything like that, or the Zoom link? Does anybody?
I think they would have to type them in if they have any. Oh, they can raise their hand. Okay.
Okay, seeing that the presentation's over, we want to make sure that we capture anybody's questions or concerns, but at the same time, we want to make
So
sure.
this was the public comment period. We do have some
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
So like, if I look at your time, my seventh grade daughter will never set foot in the new building. So are you considering the input of elementary school parents? Because they're the ones that are actually going to have children that attend this school. Like, I feel like, you know, it's great that I went to this meeting, but now I feel like I don't have a lot of input to give because my kid is never gonna see the inside of this building. Maybe you have younger children,
Well, first-
younger children, but you know, it's like,
Yeah, no, I understand. First and foremost, all these meetings are public.
yeah.
So this is,
Yeah.
you know, there are three types of kind of meetings
Yeah.
we're having, you know, visioning meetings, as Christina said, and community forums, and this is a school building committee meeting, all of which are public meetings, I'm aware. So we value everyone's opinion. We want to identify certain constituency groups that collectively have opinions as well, and you know, certainly just because your child may not, you know, who knows, they may be a teacher here in the new school someday. And so, you know, you never know what's gonna come. So we value and want to encourage everybody's
Input, but yeah.
input. No, it's a tough one.
I have
Yes.
input, but as a teacher.
Yes, please.
Okay? Remember that sometimes we have 40 students, but sometimes we have 35. And I had an experience in a brand new school in which sometimes I had 25, and then when I had 35, there was not enough ventilation. And there was not enough space for the children, so that's something to consider. The next thing to consider is ventilation. We need to be able to open the windows and get air. We've had the experiences of some schools in which the windows only open either this way or this way. So on a hot day, you can't get any air. And if you have AC, it depends on whether we can afford to put on the AC or not. Lastly, technology. Don't shoot me. We have a lot of problems with Spectrum.
Oh.
Will Spectrum be able to sustain the bandwidth for this when it's a new school? Okay, because when we don't have technology working, the children are losing learning time. We feel that we're falling behind in teaching time, but most of all, administrators, we can't get our work done.
To respond to your last question about the spectrum, you know, I feel like this team can move mountains, right? We try to solve every problem that gets thrust upon us. The spectrum issue is one that might be a little bit bigger than the team. We want to work and we want to do the best with what we have. And I mean, I would stand here and commit that the team is willing to do that, but certainly we can only do things that are in our control, but you know, I can promise you that we're gonna do everything in our power to address, you know, all those concerns. Yes,
Yes, I understand that, when they're building new home construction, there is an initiative to electrify the entire building because it's easier to do it when you're constructing it than tearing down walls and putting it in after the fact.
absolutely.
The other thing is you must consider suitable and adequate space for specialists. My wife was a speech therapist. She ended up in boiler rooms and closets and here and there. There needs to be space for those specialists, speech and language, occupational therapy, guidance, etc.
I was a speech kid when I was a kid, and I think I was in a closet for most of my speech sections. So as Christina said, though, you know, she, what's that? Yeah, look how I turned out. I'm speaking in front of crazy. You wouldn't know I stuttered that. What Christina said earlier, though, is like she's having meetings, the LPA team is having meetings with all different
Disciplines.
all different,
Yeah,
thank you, all different disciplines within the school. So the space summary template that Sean talked about is gonna vet that out. And that's one of the reasons that one of the slides that Chris showed, there was a bunch of deficiencies in a lot of the existing areas. And you'll see, I mean, some areas were 50% deficient. So we try very hard to make sure that we address your concern and make sure that everybody in the school has enough, you know, elbow room to function.
The
and do what they do.
environment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep.
Does anybody here think that back in 1964, we were all sitting around talking about this stuff?
No,
No, that's 60 years ago when the school was built. So instead of thinking about a 7-year process, which is like the pimple on the side of a dinosaur, we gotta look 60 years into the future to think about this school that we're building, to make sure it fits the footprint, the neighborhood, and the area. You're asking ventilation, spectrum stuff, all that. That could be completely different technology by then. There were no cell phones in 1964, and look at it now. So I think what does LPA have, or Dorn and Whittier have that experience to be able to say, we've looked at or we've checked out a building or we've done design work with a building that is 60 years in the future. And how long ago was LPA established? 13 years, 14 years?
No,
So I was saying,
it's 55 years ago.
1970, okay, so we're not talking that much time since it was a building that you might have done back then to say to us.
Yeah.
Here's this building we've done back in 1970, and it's already burgeoning at the seams, like you just said, Doherty was. Already expanded to the point where it's grown. I think keeping an open mind is what we really need to do with these two teams. Make sure that what we're gonna project in the future is gonna be sustainable 60 years from now. So that the people that are gonna be sitting here, if they're sitting or floating up above us, or driving around in hover cars or whatever, that they're gonna be able to say our school is not bursting at the seams, but 60 years the rotation comes where we need to establish a brand new school.
To your point, I forget whether it was Doherty or so, but I remember we started that conversation, the technology conversation down one road. And by the time we were at the end,
Yeah.
it changed. It changed within the course of the time frame of the project. So
Right.
never mind 50 years from now, but certainly the visioning, I think, captures to the extent we all can see that far ahead.
Right.
We try to,
We're trying to look
We're
now,
trying to
we
look
need to look
that far.
for 60 years in advance.
Yeah.
Too, we just can't keep narrowing it down to today or tomorrow or next week, next year, or 7 years down the road. We need to look 60 years down the road, not just one specific point in time.
one of the other things in addition to the technology is just the building materials, the envelope, a lot of people do home renovations and they go to Home Depot and they pick the cheapest thing because, cost is the most important, but if you're thinking about a 50-year building or a 75 or even a 100-year building, you gotta make choices that are sustainable in nature,
Especially at that time was the place.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
That was the place to go.
I
Yes,
have one
thank
last question and concern.
Please.
Is because this is a music school, a music and art school.
Sorry.
We need to make sure that the auditorium has a good sound system, including the walls that will, well, what's the word? Acoustics. Thank you, I always say that wrong. Because I have been here for various functions, and if you sit in the middle, you can't hear anything. When they built Auburn High School, I've been there too, brand new school, they messed up. So because this is the focus of why our children come here, we need to make sure that they have a sound system that's appropriate and aligned with what they study.
Have you been to Doherty or South at all?
In the auditorium, yes, but never for a function, not for a play or anything else.
They're pretty impressive buildings, what we do. And I just mentioned that, this process results in those two buildings are examples of this process.
Yeah.
I mean, I for one is very proud of those buildings. Yes, I'm sorry, what company?
And I just would like to add, so you may not be aware, but we were the architects for the Hanover Theater also.
Oh, yeah.
We've also done a lot of higher ed black box theater spaces. The Eagle Hill Center, the Performing Arts Center they have out there that has a full scene shop, black box theater, cafeteria. It's set up as its kind of freestanding art center. We were also the architects for that. So we bring a wealth of experience when it comes to the performing arts, visual arts also.
Yes.
Thank you. So obviously, we know in the scope of the project, there's gonna be focus on, chapter 74 programs, technology, all of that, and, looking towards the future. But I think along the lines of what Mr. Shea and Hope were asking, some of the feedback from educators and caregivers have really been, since this is an arts magnet, I'm trying, and you are going to be saying, you said, talking to all different disciplines. Will there be a general, will there be a specific focus on each of those, subject areas instead of just like the arts in general, because they really do have different needs, and it is like, you know, it's just such an incredible program that we offer here, to be able to make sure each of those disciplines gets the appropriate attention. Is that part of the plan?
It is part of the plan, absolutely.
We had that exact conversation. I was, that's why, yeah, if you don't mind chiming in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it is
please.
a good plan.
Thank you,
First,
sorry.
like, as we go through the process, we get into more and more detail. So at first, we're going to meet with the groups, and we have a couple of hours allocated for all the arts. We find out that's not enough, we schedule another meeting, We really need to dig in to make sure that we have all the spaces that are gonna be required for those arts programs in that space summary template, because that's step one. And then we come back and we go into the nitty gritty details of every single little thing that you're gonna need in each of those spaces, down to the sound systems and the chairs and the acoustics. So we got you. We're gonna do it all.
Yes, in the back.
So my comments are more in regards to being that we've built about 5 new schools in the last 10, 15 years. And so I appreciate the template in regards to the existing, the proposed, and the MSBA guidelines. But I'd like to see, especially as a new member that hasn't gone through this process, and with a kindergartner who will be graduating in 2038, I'd like to see the lessons learned that we have from our previous schools, that we understand they're all very different. I'm a North High alum, and that school is busting at the seams from like couple of years in, specifically also with the athletic, success. Lessons, true use cases for Worcester students, programs, teachers, educators, that allow us to see what we could have done better in the past and what we can incorporate from that. Particularly to conform us to what the gentleman said, right? We want to look at these buildings to have a projection like a long line.
Yeah.
And to be accommodating, so seeing that list, I think would be important as an input into the considerations of the program division. So is that something that we could get?
That very thing is one of the reasons the city of Worcester picked Lamro Pagano. You know, their vast experience with a bunch of school buildings. You know, they take each, I don't want to speak for them, but I've seen it firsthand that taking lessons learned from the first school, Nelson Place, and remembering those nuances and applying them to the next school that they got, which was South High. Then the same thing, taking the lessons learned from South High and applying them to Dory. They in part showcase that notion into their presentation when they presented before the Mass School Building Authority. So it's one of the things that I very much value in Lamro Pagano. Is there a list? Maybe they can speak to how they capture all those lessons learned, and is there a document? I'm not really sure of the inner workings there, but maybe.
So there actually
Sean.
is, even independent of us. So the state does post occupancy assessments, and they go back into the schools after they've been opened and assess what's working, what's not working, and they file their own reports. So the Mass State Building Authority has those available. The best part about that is we're not involved. You know, I mean, that's their group of architects, their group of educational specialists that are going to the school, making observations, seeing what works and doesn't work. And they do that because they see it reinforcing their policy changes. Because there was a big push for maker spaces and stuff like that in the past decade, and they were finding everyone wanted them, and they were turning into like storage dumps. So then they kind of put other policies out, so they'd be put in certain areas, or you can't have them unless you have a dedicated teacher, things like that they've really done. One thing I do want to say on the space summary template, because I know there's been a lot of talk about the future and building capacity, is the MSBA guidelines and this enrollment is really more to do with the state's funding mechanism, less than what we're designing to. Because when we designed South and when we designed Doherty for you, we were well above those guidelines. We designed to what you were looking for, what your projections were. Really, the number on the enrollment is just MSBA saying we fund up to this amount. Because that number feeds into their calculator. And that calculator feeds into the reimbursement rate. But there's the state's never going to tell you that you can't build beyond what they're willing to fund. You can. But that's the balance. That's what this whole process is. That's why we engage together, hear what you want, and get it right.
Doesn't the MSBA also have workshops to kind of do the lessons learned throughout the Commonwealth?
Yep.
I think they do something like.
Yeah, they've done a story of the buildings, is one thing. Normally they try to have it be a highlight. We were definitely a lessons learned with Auburn Middle School. It was when mechanical systems were making big changes in controls and we had some controls freeze up there, but we didn't shy away from the lesson learned. We showed up and now the state actually has a new policy on recommendations on how to procure and specify mechanical units based off of the experience that we had to have before anyone else did. So
Right here in front.
I think we must pay attention. I'm a resident of this area, I live right next door to the school over on Brexham Brook. And I think we must pay a big amount of attention to the demographics of this area. I think this has to be an inviting place for parents to come to.
That's right.
To come to and to use
absolutely.
and to meet with staff, with students. If the parents feel they're welcome and they're gonna buy into the educational goals that we have set for their students. If they feel they're not welcome or they're alienated from the school, that's gonna be a reflection on how seriously some of these students take school. So that is a big consideration. I am an avid supporter of the community school model. And I'd like to have you explore that in your thoughts and in your design.
All right, well, thank you very much. Anybody else have any concerns on what they saw or thoughts? This certainly is our last meeting, so there's gonna be additional chances and opportunities to
What's that schedule?
Yeah, so
wait.
we do have a couple more items. So we do need to schedule the meetings as we get closer to present our findings. This is more directed to the SBC, but the SBC is not the only meetings we're having, right? You guys are here to render the final vote for approval and get it to the state. You're also here for input. Typically, where we find the most meaningful input is when we have a more focused agenda. And what we're really doing here is what you're gonna see. All of these have been posted to the city's special events page. Okay, they're open meetings, but they're not public meetings as far as public meeting law. Like they're open events. They're gonna be facilitated by us. Anyone who's on in the SBC is willing to come. It's not gonna be facilitated by a public body. So the first one is coming up on May 13th. We're gonna be right back here. Actually, all of these are here. You can find them all online. And the first one, the community, they're gonna get a lot of the same stuff you got today. Very brief, because it's gonna quickly shift to the education. And this is where we're starting to create the big picture ideas. What do you guys really want? You mentioned a community school, right? This is the time to come in and weigh in. The first one is more about what is gonna happen in the next 3. They all build on each other, so that's why it's workshop 1, 2, and 3. As you can see, they're a week apart. We wanted to catch everyone before they left for summer break.
So it's all gonna be held at the same time, 6 p.m.
No, so they are posted on the website. I put them here when we first did this presentation. We hadn't had them fully. I think they went out to agendas maybe yesterday or the day before. So I just wanted to have the days locked in. Some are from 3 to 5, and then there is one in the evening also. So these visioning sessions all build on each other. We anticipate there being heavy participation from faculty, staff, obviously students are welcome, and we want community members. So please, please, please come. And then even if you can't participate, this community visioning forum is where we're gonna button up everything that came out of that. We're gonna say, hey, this is what we heard from you. Is this right? Yet again, it's not the last chance to weigh in, but we want to get together and have consensus so everyone can collectively hear. Talking about consensus and staying informed, it has now gone live. I don't know if you've been on the Burncoat High School page. This is a state requirement, but something we used to do before the state required it. We actually have a Burncoat School Building Project tab that lives directly on the Burncoat High School page. So you go to the page, it's right at the top there in red. You'll see there's an overview, and this is going to get built out and updated as we get more information, as we have more meetings. talking about other updates. Meetings and other things are also being posted to the Worcester Public Schools webpage. I'm a parent also. I got a Parent Square, notification about this meeting and the next one. So it is getting out to the public. I can affirm that. But if you're not for some reason, here's the best part. Easiest way to find it, one spot. You don't have to necessarily go to that special events page on the city site. You'll be able to see it here specifically for this and not have to weed through the other events. That's what we got.
So much.
Thank you.
Yes,
These meetings all being recorded too?
the school building committee meetings are being recorded. I don't think necessarily the other ones are.
No,
The school building committee is a meeting, kind of a level above the community and the visioning sessions. There's certain requirements to having a school building committee meeting as opposed to the other ones. If there's no more questions, thank you very much. Appreciate everyone's time and feedback.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let me know if I.
oh, my voice was dying on me at the end there.
Yeah.
Hold on, I'm not shut off or muted.